get started with the CDTA Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, April 28th. We have a quorum. The agenda's been distributed in advance. Are there any objections to the agenda as presented? No? Good, then we'll just move on to the minutes of the last meeting, March 31st. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Jackie.
Second.
Second from Mike. Any edits, changes, additions, subtractions? All those in favor of the minutes say aye.
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 Opposed? It's approved. We'll move on to committee reports, and I'll kick it off with the Board Operations Committee that convened on April 14th here at CDTA as well as Microsoft Teams. The first item is an action item for us today, which is the collective bargaining agreement extension. The agreement was ratified by the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1321 a week or two ago by about 80% in favor of it, which is excellent. The agreement extends the bargaining agreement by 2 years until June of 2023, provides a 5% increase for our frontline employees who've been the face of CDTA throughout the pandemic. There will be a significant increase in pension contributions on behalf of our employees by the company, and the extension also continues to engage our employees in their health care, and it will provide a major step forward in retiree health care benefits. This will have a significant effect on our balance sheet under the post-employment benefit line. So we need to have a motion to approve Resolution 2021, which is the extension of the ATU agreement, which would become effective on June 13, 2021, and run through June of 2023. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Second?
I'll second. Second?
Jackie? Any questions, comments, Karen?
Yeah, I was looking through my annual work plan, which really represents the work plan for the company. Jamie and I have been talking about, hey, how do we do this year? So I was kind of wrapping it up. Jamie and I will probably be meeting the next week or so, and I was looking at that item, and it was begin discussions, not much else, right? And we were really hopeful of, going through the standard, usual negotiations, which would have begun right about now. Contract expired. Here we are, approving it after an overwhelming ratification based on another one of my crazy ideas. It was just, hey, Mike, why don't we just get together with the ATU and see if we can open up some discussions? Well, lo and behold, we sort of found a way to get it done without the standard elongated, really long and really not all that useful series of meetings and discussions. So I'm actually pretty close to amazed that we were able to do this, and I think provide a package of benefits that is needed and necessary for our employees, and frankly very timely. As you said, right, frontline workers are the ones who we sort of pointed to throughout the pandemic, and it's good to be able to give them, I think, well-deserved increase in wages. Special thanks to the ATU Executive Committee. They were engaged in this and sat with us through really a series of short meetings and got this done. And last but not least, Mike Collins, who is, as always, the calming influence. He's the yin to the yang, basically, especially when I want to go off and try to do something that he says, that's just too different. That won't work. 99% of the time he's right. 1% of the time. This is a really solid arrangement, and it takes collective bargaining into 2023. Appreciate everybody's support.
Well earned for the workers. Good agreement.
Good agreement. Solid agreement.
Anybody else have any comments? All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The agreement is, the resolution is approved. Thank you, everyone. Let me complete my report of the Board Operations Committee. We agendas and the summer calendar of meetings. There will be no meetings in July. The August meetings will start 1 week later than usual, and then we'll continue in September on our regular schedule. Of course, we can schedule a meeting at any time if board action is required. We talked about the state budget, which had passed earlier in the month. It provides for level state operating assistance. Although we advocated for increases in this important funding source, we understand the state situation and the implications of the federal stimulus funding. Our advocacy efforts have resumed with a focus on Montgomery County service. Carm presented a white paper on free or reduced fares. We will focus our work on targeted segments of our ridership and the community that requires assistance, and our universal access agreement will be the working model for Educate that we advance in the future. The next scheduled meeting of the Board Operations Committee is Wednesday, May 12th, 9:15 a.m. here at 110 Waterville Avenue and via Microsoft Teams. Can answer any questions that anybody might have about that meeting. Otherwise, we'll move on to the Investment Committee. Denise, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Making sure my mic's working. Okay, good. All right, so the investment committee met prior to the board meeting last month, and we every year the Public Authorities Law requires that we do a review of our investment policy. And our policy details how we invest, monitor, and report on funds. There are no recommended changes to the policy this year upon review of the committee as well as council. And at this time, we need a motion to approve the 2021 investment policy without changes.
Can I get a motion to approve the resolution on the investment policy? Thank you, Jackie. Second from Mike. Anybody have any questions? We do this every year. No changes, right, Denise?
No changes.
All those in favor of resolution 21, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's approved.
Okay.
So
Shall
we'll move
we-
on to the performance monitoring committee report while you're talking, Denise.
Okay. All right. Very good. The committee met on April 21st on Teams and 110 Waterville Avenue. And the first item we have is the audit committee. Sarah Matrose provided the committee with the audit plan for the coming fiscal year. The plan is in your packets. The committee also received the quarterly internal audit report, which is included in your packets as well. As I mentioned, the investment committee met and did their review of the policy. The monthly management report, Mike Collins provided the monthly management report. The MRT finished this year with a record $14.8 million, thanks to low interest rates and a booming housing market. Customer revenue finished 61% under budget. And the rail station revenue was down 74%. Advertising revenue was right on budget. Wages were down 2.3%. Most other expense lines were under budget for the year due to the pandemic. And total expenses were down 6% for the year. We ended the year in a good financial position, plus about $800,000. The monthly non-financial report, Chris Desney provided the non-financial report. Ridership, as we all know, was down 36% for the year. Total boardings were $9.8 million, 9.8 million, excuse me. And Star ridership was down 42%. Total boardings were 142,000 for the year for Star. Fixed route on-time performance was at 80%. Star on-time performance was at 85%. And the total number of accidents were down 47 this year, but preventable accidents were up by 52. And the staff will provide a report at the June committee meeting on looking into those details further. So unless there are any questions, we have no other items to vote on this time. We usually have a whole list of them. It was a light agenda this month. So if there are no questions for Mike or for Chris on the management reports, our next meeting is scheduled for noon, May 19th.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
We did all the heavy lifting last month. Then we'll move on to the Community and Stakeholder Relations Committee. Jackie Paltico.
Thank you. Community and Stakeholder Relations Committee met on April 22nd at 11:30 in the morning, in person here and also via Microsoft Teams. The staff provided presentations on the upcoming electric scooter pilot and the media and communications activities of the previous month. John Scherzer provided information on a new e-scooter pilot program. New York State now allows the use of e-scooters, which allows us to offer this newest mobility option. The pilot program will feature nearly 60 scooters that will be equitably distributed across the capital region. Scooters are only able to be used in a defined geo-fenced area. Customers can access scooters, much like CDPHP Cycle, by creating an online account through a website or mobile app. The pilot will launch in early June. Jamie Watson summarized the Media Relations Community Engagement Report. CDTA earned 20 media placements in television, newspaper, and radio during March. Stories focus on an event held at Albany Medical Center that honored essential workers from both organizations, the return of CDPHP Cycle Season 5, and the recently passed fiscal year 2022 CDTA budget. Jamie outlined some of the community engagement activities that CDTA participated in and noted that many activities are starting to return to in-person events. Some of the activities included the rollout of the CAP New York initiative spearheaded by CEG, the Albany County Sheriff SHIP program, Junior Achievement Titan program, and New York State Donate Life Month. The next meeting of the committee will be on Thursday, May 20th at 11:30 a.m. Are we pushing that back? Now that I say that out loud.
Yeah, well, there was some thought of maybe starting that at 11:15, or we seem to be running into planning. So maybe 15 minutes
So let's just
start.
say that. So 11:15 a.m. on May 20th, here at 110 Waterville Ave and also on Microsoft Teams.
Thank you. Any questions for Jackie about the committee meeting? Then we'll move on to the Strategic and Operational Planning Committee report from Mike Cruciato.
Thanks, Jamie. The Strategic and Operational Planning Committee met April 22nd, 12 p.m. here at 110 Waterville Ave and via Microsoft Teams. We had no consent agenda items and one administrative discussion items regarding our mid-sized infrastructure projects. Ross Farrell and Brent Irving gave a presentation that explained the concept of mid-sized infrastructure projects and provided several examples of past and future projects. Mid-sized infrastructure projects are designed to improve service, operations, safety, and accessibility. Typically they involve partnering with municipalities, New York State DOT, or other stakeholders, and are either built by our facilities department or are coordinated with pre-existing partner projects. They may involve adding traffic signals, crosswalks, curb extensions, bump outs, ADA improvements, or site work for new stations and shelters. These require design and engineering, but are smaller in scale than a full BRT line or transit center. Costs could range between $50,000 and $500,000. A sample of completed projects include Crossgates Commons, Albany Medical Center, Rivers Casino, Washington and Henry Johnson, Geyser Road, and the U-Albany downtown campus. Projects in the pipeline include Lark Drive, St. Peter's, Hill Street Square, and Allen Street, Washington Avenue. The next meeting of the committee will be on Thursday, May 20th at 12 p.m. here at 110 Waterville Ave or via Microsoft Teams. And that concludes my report unless there's any further questions or comments.
Comment from anyone? It was a very interesting meeting, I thought, Mike. I think that presentation of all those projects just gives a sense of everything's going on in the area.
Yeah, you know, I think I mentioned this at the committee meeting. We talk a lot about, CDTA positioning and image and partnerships. And I think people quickly focus to a lot of the work that Jamie and John Scherzer do, and that's true, and it's all good, and it's all well deserved, but a lot of the work that happens in other parts of the organization, as Brent Ross showed you, are partnership building, the relationship building. It's all one sort of big activity that really, though, happens in a lot of different places. I can tell you, for example, in STAR, there's a whole bunch of relationship building that's constantly going on that keeps STAR operating more efficient. So it was just good to have Ross and Brent point those projects out, really to give you an understanding of some of the work that they do to build partnerships for that project, but also for the company that usually, frankly, result in more projects and more opportunities. So, and you're right, those guys did a great job.
The next part of our agenda, CDCA, according to the bylaws, needs to hold its annual meeting, which also accounts for appointment of officers. I appointed Georgie Nugent to chair our nominating committee, serving with Mike Rochon and Pat Lance. So Georgie will pick up this part of the meeting.
Thanks, Jamie. So myself, Mike, and Pat met on April 1st. Thank you both for being included in your time and service to the committee. We are recommending that the current 2021 slate of officers continue to lead the board for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Chairperson Jamie Lahutt, Vice Chairperson Mike Rochon, Secretary Mark Schaefer, and Treasurer Dave Stackrow. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you again.
I need a motion to accept the slate of officers from the nominating committee.
So moved.
Second by Jackie, thank you. Anyone want to replace any of us or make an addition or subtraction? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. Joy serving on this board. Thank you, Georgie, for working on this particular task. The last year has been very challenging for the organization as a whole, and I think for the board in particular, the whole COVID thing between the frontline workers, the essential workers, keeping operations in service, all the COVID cases that have taken place made it very difficult, I'm sure, from the operations level, but on the board side of it, certainly with just dealing with a lot of the changes, the budget issues that have come up that we've talked about endlessly for the past year. So thank everyone on the board for everything that you do. The whole Teams approach, the Microsoft Teams, has really been a blessing in disguise, just to make sure everyone is involved for every committee meeting and every board meeting, and that's worked really well because we are a little shorthanded on the board, so it's made having attendance and having everyone at the meetings a little bit easier. So it's been quite a year. I think that a tremendous amount was accomplished. COVID aside, the strategic plan was accomplished in a really difficult time. So many things have really happened during the past year, thanks to Carm's leadership and staff. So it's really been, I think, a very successful year of what otherwise could have been a bit of a disaster. But thankfully, we've persevered through this, and there's a lot of problems still to solve. Looking forward, so that'll keep everyone busy.
Well, thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome. Next, we're going to move to the CEO report. Give Carm a chance to talk.
As my mentor tells me all the time, busy is job security. But before I talk a little bit about what's going on, I don't think the board gives itself enough credit. Jamie, you certainly don't give yourself enough credit. I think the mark of a good organization begins and ends with leadership. And it starts with, in our case, the board chair and the board. You're here all the time, way more than most boards meet. We call on you sometimes to a point where I gotta be honest with you, I feel guilty. You're always available for a quick phone call. The contract, the collective bargaining agreement is just one example I leaned on a couple of people who I knew had areas of particular expertise, and they came through. Sometimes a couple word answers, but that's all you need. Sometimes it was, I think you're doing all right. So we as a staff appreciate that way more than I can express to you. And not everyone has it so good. I talk to people who do my job, and board complaints are usually at the top of the list. I don't have that. We don't have that. You know, we don't have a meddlesome board. Those are dangerous boards. We have a policy-making, vision-oriented board. And as long as I'm here, I'll try to keep it that way because I think it makes for a really productive and worthwhile working arrangement. I think it's why we're successful. I 100% honestly believe that. That is why we're successful. When you're worried about whether the trash can is dumped, and we should be, someone should be worried about that, but not a board. And I talk to people all the time, whether it's transit or otherwise. That's what board members are concerned about. That's like the number one priority. This board is different. So we appreciate it. I don't think you give yourselves enough credit, but know that we know the work that you're doing.
You're too kind, thank you.
Yeah, I'm full of kindness. Just ask the people who work here. Kindness is my middle name. But you know, maybe we just pick up on that theme and talk about some of the things. And I'll remind you, during the year, we introduced the Blue Line BRT. We expanded and renovated our Troy garage. We built the LaHut parking facility across the street. We're connecting it to the Waterley Avenue campus. For those of you that are here today, I mean, it's just a whirlwind of activity out there. You take your life into your hands, I think, if you walk out there, but all kinds of activity going on, which will then allow us to expand the garage. You've got almost $15 million investment in the back of the building. We kept CDPHP cycle going, and while we kept it going, it broke ridership records. We are one of the few transit systems in the country that operate their own bike share program. And there's a lot of reasons why we do that. A lot of that is control-oriented, but it's good control-oriented. I'm not sure of this. I'm sure John Scherzer knows this. We're going to be one of the few transit systems, if not the only one, who dares to go into the world of electric scooters. And I do mean that, dares. We're not quite sure what we're getting into. I think it's going to be mostly good. But you know, who knows? But again, it's the board vision, the board, I think, trust in us that allows us to do that. I can't say we've purchased the rights, but we have now the rights to a car share program. You know, more to follow on that. So soon, under that umbrella of mobility, are buses, bikes, scooters, cars. We're working on an integrated payment platform. You know, people who work in Chris's shop are always working to sort of tie all these things together. It's really hard. Everyone says, why can't they all work together? Well, oftentimes there are different platforms that, you know, don't talk to each other well, but where the people who work in Chris's shop are great, they find a way to make those conversations happen. So those are just some of the things. Jamie talked about the strategic plan. Yeah, I hastened to say this earlier, but in my career here, I don't think we ever had a formal strategic plan, you know, written down the way this one is documented. So hats off to the board. You know, the new mission statement, I think, is 100% accurate. That's who we are. And just a little note about partnerships. You know that anybody who's anybody got a copy of that plan. I don't know how many we mailed, maybe 500 to different organizations, community leaders, and I can tell you that that plan bore a relationship with Stewart's. We are starting a pilot with them, a very low-key pilot. We're going to try a universal access agreement at a store. More will follow, I'm 100% confident, but the way that works is Gary Dake gets one in the mail, flips through it, sends me a note, says, hey, why don't we talk? Partnerships at its very at its very basic level, but another great example. The COVID update, thankfully, not much different than the COVID update from last month. We had 92 people as of this writing who tested positive, but only 2 in the month of April. Yesterday, our report to the state that we make every day had only 1 person on it, 1 person in, and I'm probably jinxing it, Kelly, I'm sorry, but only 1 person in precautionary quarantine. So what that means is that the operating people have everybody who is supposed to be working. Are they there? That's a whole other story. That comes in another committee report somewhere down the line, but good news there. But really, though, it's the work of our people that make this all happen. Jackie's report, she talked about our event with Albany Medical Center where we saluted their frontline workers and our frontline workers. And you talk about an intersection, right? Our people brought their people to work so that they could keep all of us people safe. The story doesn't get better than that. Albany Medical Center, by the way, is one of, if not our largest universal access partner. And the featured speaker was a young physician who uses our bikes every single day to either get to work, to shoot over to CVS, to run an errand. This guy is on a bike. He is logged, I don't know, someone had kept track, they logged the minutes or miles that this guy has ridden, but it's a great story. It's everything you think it is and everything you don't think it is, whether it be bikes, buses, or soon to be scooters. But the project out front is finishing up. It's a necessary project. We need to connect the parking lot to 110 and have a better connection between 110 and 85. But it also now has turned into a little bit of a beautification project. There are going to be trees planted, plants, and there's a new irrigation system, and a new, it's going to, I believe you're as good as you look, right? And another mentor told me, dress for the job you want, not the job you're in. And I always did that. Although dress codes seem to be out the window these days. But you only get one chance to make a good first impression. And the front of the building is a first impression. Even though we're in an industrial park, buried away next to I-90, no one says we can't look good. So, great job by the facilities people and our contractors. Talk about people who work. They're here at 6:30 and they don't stop till 3:30. I don't even see them taking lunch breaks. So.
When's it going to be done? It's a hassle out there.
Couple weeks. But next time you come, it'll be done. How's that?
All right.
He's
Write
tough.
it down.
That's why he's a good chair. He's demanding. When's it going to be done? That concludes my report.
I'm not used to not finding a parking space. It's connected. So. When you're the parking czar, it comes easy.
You have the pass, universal pass. We'll have to get you the gold card.
I don't even need a gold card. It's connected.
Welcome to Albany.
Thank you, Norm.
Different.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Mark?
That's been my first meeting.
Yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back. Great to see you.
Given what you said about work being visionary, I'm not a practical person. I appreciate people like Carm and staff who actually get things done. But a couple visionary ideas. First, I have a question first about scooters. You expressed some concern. I would guess that would have to do with safety.
Yeah, a little bit on the safety side. This is something new. Believe it or not, you can ride a bike faster than you can ride a scooter. But it's really the maintenance of the program. They're very portable. They can be left in very small spaces. So we're concerned about that, but the people who manage our bike share program are managing the scooter program, so I have a lot of faith in them. But there'll be some bumps and hurdles. I mean, literally, you could drive it into the restaurant, for God's sake. That's what
Just
I'm worried
that occurred to me, depending on the character of the population, they could disappear and end up
Yes,
out of state someplace.
they could, but we have their debit card.
Yeah, is there any experience with such programs in terms of safety and security?
Yeah, these programs exist all over the world, all over the country, and it seems like you fall into one or two camps, right? You either love them or you hate them. But the user group loves them. It's a little different demo. It's skews a little younger. But it's people who use our service. So those are our people. That's our audience. So let's try it. That's why it's a pilot. We'll see what issues really develop, if any, and we'll address them. And if it's working, we'll be back here with a recommendation to expand. If it doesn't work, we'll be in a recommendation to do something different.
And then to get the visionary stuff, we run CAD. My understanding, leaving the public prices, is that the traditional taxi cabs sort of have lunch eaten by Uber and Lyft, which have labor policies which are scandalous. The actual per hour pay for a lot of the drivers, many of them, I guess, are hard on for income, is in many cases below minimum wage. We subtract the necessary expenses and so forth. The other long-standing problem I have with the cab system here is that when you're already getting speak for myself, I'm not going to get to the airport running late, and there are all these different cab companies. You sort of gamble which one you call that has cab, but I supported the idea of a single consolidated dispatcher for all cabs. It occurred to me that we might want to think visionary, given the problems with Uber, Lyft, and so forth, taking over the cab service in the capital district. Is that something feasible? I don't need an immediate answer, just something to think about. And then lastly, in terms of bicycles and maybe the BRT going forward, bicycles have many health advantages except for fatalities per passenger mile of traffic, which is not so good for the health. But with dedicated bicycle lanes, those outcomes are much, much better. And it might be something to look toward going down the line, have dedicated bus bicycle lanes, maybe cross-country skiing in the winter. Something to think about. And the context for that is I'm active in the New York News Coalition, which was mainly driving force behind a private bill passed a couple of years ago. There's a new piece of legislation that New York News is pushing hard for, which would fund major investments in clean energy over a decade, projected to raise $15 billion per year by, they're not calling them carbon taxes, they're calling them fees. They would be levied on corporations introducing fossil energy to the state, which in almost all cases is imported, which they would tend to pass along to customers. So about a third of the revenue would go to reimbursing low and moderate income households. About a third would be for big renewable energy investments, including transit, and a third would go to target disadvantaged communities. And in addition, the rebates for the low and middle income consumers would default, if it don't go through its current court, would default to, rather than just cash, the same cash benefit to hold people harmless for pass-through energy costs, take the form of transit vouchers for weatherization type funding. So if this is successful, there would be more. New York News is very interested in expanding and electrified transit, so that's something to keep in mind. And, you know, contingency planning for a favorable outcome, and a lot more money, both on the federal as well as state level, for expanding the transit system. If we can get to a point where, you know, the buses are, the major lines are coming every 5 minutes, people don't have to worry about schedules and so forth, we could hope for a major increase in ridership. And in that context, dedicated lanes may be a practical possibility.
And we are working on dedicated lanes. There'll be a staff presentation sometime in the next several months.
That's great.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments, questions? If not, the next meeting of the board is scheduled for Wednesday, May 26th, 12 noon here at 110 Waterloo Avenue. Promise that plenty of parking will be available for us. Or you can join us on Microsoft Teams. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.